Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 16th episode of the World of Brick Films podcast. I'm your host, William of AW Studios. Joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Sean Willis of City Penta.
Hello.
And joining us today is Ethan of Mighty Wanderer.
Hey, what's up?
How are you doing, alright?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, cool. Congratulations on coming second place alongside Sloth on THAC.
Yeah, thanks.
So this is the first time you've placed in the top 3 of THAC, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. I think last year I got 7th. I don't even remember what that was called, but still moving up, I guess.
Yeah, and I noticed recently that you've been entering since THAC 9 and haven't missed a single one yet.
Yeah, I guess this makes this my 7th back, and I don't plan to stop now. So hopefully I can make that at least 10 before I take a break.
Cool. So actually, this is your 10th anniversary, actually, as a brick film, is that right?
I think next year is going to be my 10th anniversary, because I joined... No. I joined February 2011, so this is my 8th anniversary. Because I did the THAC immediately after I joined, and I've done 7 of those.
Yeah.
But my anniversary is on like the 25th or something.
But it seems like the earliest stuff you have uploaded to your channel that you've shared recently enough was dated 2009.
Which things are those?
From the corners of the brick box, or was that the name of the series?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, okay. I don't really consider starting brick filming until I really got into Bricks in Motion, because I did like a couple test things like those, or just messing around with friends, but I guess those count. I just didn't really count them.
Yeah, I think we all have that early period that we don't consider to technically count.
Right, and I know I have things before then that I've lost. Like, the very first thing that I did, I remember very vividly doing this, and it was a really long time ago. Remember those old Star Wars battle packs? There was the drop ship for the Stormtroopers, and then the ground ship for the Rebel Alliance. I had gotten those two, the old one, not the new one. And for the Rebel one, I decided to make a video where I would put it on top of a long plate, position the camera so you couldn't see the plate, and then just like slide it across the screen as I was doing dialogue in a video on just a point and shoot camera. And I made like 2 shots, and that was it.
Pretty classic techniques there. So did you just come up with the idea yourself, or were you watching things at the time that gave you the idea to try brick filming?
I think I was inspired by the Lego Star Wars official contest from 2007.
All right, so that was all the way 2007.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, wow, I want to do something like this. Unfortunately, I don't know how to make them move on my own, so I'll just slide it across the screen. It's the next best thing.
That contest did get a lot of people into brick filming.
Yeah, this would have been 2008, because that's when the Imperio dropship came out. So technically, last year would be my 10th anniversary if we're going with furthest back.
So I'm guessing you would have seen things like Average Death Star Day.
Probably. I don't recognize the name.
Okay.
I did go through and watch most of those that were listed on the Lego website. I remember Garrett Barati had one, right?
That was the Built By Me contest the next year. Well, in 2008.
Okay.
So maybe that's what you're thinking of? I don't know.
No, I remember there's that Boba Fett one.
Yeah.
Was that the Average Death Star Day?
There's one that's called Boba Fett.
Oh, maybe that's it. And there was one that had the Separatist droids on one of the wooded planets.
Oh, was it Endor?
Yeah, I think it was Endor. Oh, gosh, man, it's been so long. Do you have a wiki page for that I could look at the entries?
Yeah, although very few of the entries are still around.
Oh, that's sad. I watched that Boba Fett one multiple times because I thought it was the funniest thing. And then I just thought the droid one was cool because, like, droids getting smashed, and somebody made... Oh, it had General Grievous in it, didn't it? Because I seem to remember his ship.
I think I know that one, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's a remote location. Maybe it's the other winner. One of the winners has Grievous in it.
Yes, remote location is the one with the droids and General Grievous. Wow. Dang. Okay. Oh, wow. This wasn't even... They just, like, moved them around for this one. That must be where I got the idea from. This one is just videos, and they moved them by their feet individually.
Yeah, remote location is, I think, entirely live action.
This is really clever, honestly. Why didn't this get higher than the Boba Fett one?
Well, it won the category it was in, the age bracket.
Oh, it was an age bracket thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. 12 and under, 13 to 17, 18 plus. Yeah. Okay.
But the funny thing is, plenty of the entries to the 18 plus age bracket that were coming from brickfilms.com would have been leagues above that, but they weren't viewed by the judges.
Yeah, that's been a thing with Lego contests. Totally watch every entry that comes in.
People like Smeagol and Nick Duran entered that. Well, I don't know if they would have been 18 plus at that stage, but some other people would have been. And as far as everyone could tell, because they submitted so close to the deadline, their entries weren't actually watched.
Oh, that sucks. I mean, it kind of makes sense on their end. If they don't give their criteria, they're just like, hey, that one looks nice. We might as well stick that in the winner spot.
It's possible that the deadline actually meant, like, that was when they were going to have decided the winners by.
That's dumb. But oh well. Yeah, so I've definitely, those two are the ones that I remember vividly. And now going back and watching that, I am positive that's what inspired me to just like slide the thing along.
Well, that's interesting. That's funny to figure out live on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like we're writing your own history for you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, but I think it is interesting though, like how, if you kind of really sort of think about when you start out, it is always a bit kind of like, well, technically, you could say like years before, I mean, technically I've been sort of doing stop motion since 2014, although it's kind of like iffy,
Mm-hmm.
So you actually joined Bricks in Motion in 2011 then?
Yep, sometime during February. So we're coming up on my 8th anniversary.
So when you joined, who were like your biggest inspirations then?
So at that time, Garrett Barati, for one, because I remember seeing his Let's Play. Was that what it was called?
Play Nice.
Play Nice, yes. I remember seeing that, and that had just stuck with me. So I was a big fan of that. I was like, yeah, I like this. I want to be able to do this. And other than that, I had found brickfilms.com. And this was not long after the schism, right?
A couple of years, but not too far out.
In recent months, I had also been browsing brickfilms.com, so I had found a bunch of random stuff that I liked there, like Monkey See, Monkey Do. I remember that one. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is cool. And then I swear it was on a Brothers Brick article that was advertising Toy, the Tales of Yore, or something. Maybe it wasn't Tales of Yore.
Was that in Brick Journal by any chance? Did you read that?
That's also possible. I didn't read Brick Journal. It was a website.
Okay.
I'm positive it was advertising Tales of Yore, which now that I think about it is weird because that was back in February, but maybe it was ahead of time. But still, it was advertising that. I went to Bricks in Motion. I was like, whoa, there's a whole forum of people. And then I just like closed it down. And then a few days later, I went back and actually made an account. And at that point, I could not find the article that I had found it by. So how I actually found Bricks in Motion is a bit of a mystery. And it wasn't through any particular brick filmer, that's why I bring it up. So at that point, I didn't really know people a whole lot. Except for, like I said, Garrett. Because he also did the SpongeBob, the Christmas one.
Yeah.
Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas. And I had seen that too. And so I was familiar with him from those two things. And I had seen Spite Your Face's Han Solo, what is it called?
Han Solo Affair.
Affair, yes. Yeah, so that was also fresh, because that was on the LEGO website itself.
That's
a
true,
bunch
yeah.
of random stuff from no individual source that kind of drew me there. And then I got started on my own.
I'm trying to think if we've had an episode yet where Spite Your Face haven't come up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the podcast bingo, that.
Well, it makes sense considering they had Han Solo Affair up there and then a bunch of other stuff that's gotten really big.
Yeah, and even though Han Solo Affair is from 2002, they did keep it up on Star Wars pages for many years after that.
Man, I was disappointed when they took it down a few years ago. Because it's a staple of the LEGO Star Wars website, in my opinion.
It is a shame they don't really keep anything around on their websites. Like, do you know the Rebrick contests? All the pages of those are all gone now.
What?
Yeah.
They don't have past contests?
No. I mean, luckily, my brother and I saved all that stuff as it happened on the wiki page. So I think that's the only place where you can find most of the info now.
That's really disappointing.
But that just goes to show how quick they are to delete everything.
That's really strange.
I guess that means as well then, because like with most things you can just go on like the Wayback Machine, but I suppose if they actually get rid of the links, you just don't necessarily have the link to even find it, do you?
Well, Lego's websites are usually coded in a very bizarre way, and they're not compatible with Wayback Machine usually.
Ah, right.
What? Oh man.
Yeah,
It's almost like they're doing it on purpose.
they're really bad for being able to save the history. Obviously, that's a pet peeve of mine. Very particular to me.
Yeah, you better do those screenshots, because otherwise it's gone.
Yeah, sometimes I have resorted to just screenshotting things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you probably didn't hear about this, but they're moving Rebrick contests to Lego Ideas now.
Really?
Yeah.
How is that going to work?
Well, it's basically just the same, except it's on a different URL. But they haven't done any stop motion contests yet on Lego Ideas, I don't think.
Actually, that makes sense because they can compile all of the user-created content onto one website, whether it be a petition or a contest. So yeah, that makes sense. Also, Rebrick is kind of a weird name, honestly.
It is, yeah. It does make sense to compile it all. It's just a shame that they had to delete so much to do that. Well, they didn't have to, but they did.
Yeah, it didn't have to, but they did. We'll just, completely start over. That's how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, there was hundreds, maybe even thousands of entries to those Rebrick contests that were all there.
Probably thousands at this point.
Yeah. I think it does make sense to sort of transfer it all over to Lego Ideas, because it does sort of connect, I think, to that whole sort of side of things, I think. So yeah, I think it makes sense. And maybe if once they've changed it over to Lego Ideas, they won't feel the need to constantly delete stuff.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a bit more stable now.
Yeah.
Even so, I'm still going to chronicle it as it happens.
Yeah, I think you just have to.
Just think about how many hidden gems could be in the thousands of entries that are now being deleted. It's a shame.
Well, at least I don't think the Rebrick contests really lent themselves all that well to particularly standout films, considering they usually had to be 30 seconds long. I mean, obviously you can make something good in 30 seconds, but nothing that would be like absolutely mind-blowing that's going to be going missing.
True.
Yeah, I think as well, like, because they're just so big, so much stuff gets buried. I think you're likely just to watch the ones to win, I think.
Oh, sure.
That's kind of a shame, though, because, they don't have the best track record of picking the most deserving winners.
Well, they also do it, at least partially. I don't know how it's weighted or anything, but they had voting for some of the contests, right? And the higher voted ones just stayed on the front page.
Oh, then just got more and more votes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall if the winners were picked via votes. But if they weren't, I would be surprised if they didn't use the highest voted ones just to assume quality.
But do you remember the one that Panza Hat made for the Lego House Dream contest?
I believe I watched it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Well, it's very short, but it was a guy essentially bouncing between many different Lego themes, and it was extremely dense and very well done. And it didn't appear as a winner or runner-up at all.
Huh.
So I don't really have much faith in their choices.
Mm.
I mean, this is one example.
Right.
Yeah. I've always kind of just not been interested in taking part, I prefer the kind of, I don't know, the smaller contests, just like, the community contest, like Stuff and Bricks in Motion, that kind of thing, I think is more my kind of thing.
I entered one. It was the Batman one, and that was only because I had a thing that I wanted to do for it, so I figured I might as well. And it didn't turn out very well at all, but I still made something.
Yeah, I think Nathan Wells did one, didn't he, for
the
Rebrick?
Batman one, yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch of Bricks in Motion people did. I remember, I think it was Pong Owl. He had a really nice one.
Yeah, he had a really good one, really well animated. I remember
And
that.
it actually won something, right?
I don't think so.
Really? I thought it got like a runner-up or something.
I don't know if it was nominated in some other way, but as far as the winners and runner-up winners that the wiki has listed, he's not there.
Oh well. Oh, one of those actual winners was a pretty good one, if I remember.
I should hope so.
Yeah.
So did Nathan Wells not actually win anything in that contest?
No. But you know, they're usually looking for very particular styles. And generally, with those contests, it was the films that had things being taken apart and built up again is what they wanted. And his didn't have that. And I don't think Pong Owls had any of that.
One of the things I always feel as well with Rebrick is that I think their contest for... Because their contest for the Lego Movie, the original one, wasn't that the one where they had the films feature in the film? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like you can't really top that. And I think the fact that, you know, like, they don't really, as far as I'm aware, I don't think any of the other ones are featured in, like, the bonus features or anything like that. So it's not, I don't think it's ever going to have the same appeal, I don't think.
I think they did. Did they not do the same for the Batman movie and the Ninjago movie? Or was it just a chance to be featured?
The Batman movie had them on the DVD release.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
The Lego movie had them,
On screen.
yeah, in that climax scene in the background. I know Backyard Legos had had an entry that was in the movie, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I don't think he won anything in the contest, but I guess they used it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely more films in it than there were winners.
Sure, yeah.
Must have just been runner-ups.
Yeah, I don't think they did anything for the Ninjago movie, though. I mean, they had a contest, but maybe they did. They were going to feature some of those. I don't know.
I do remember them using a phrase along the lines of, you will have a chance to be included in the movie. So I guess they were just going to decide it later, but I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what they did.
I think that in the Ninjago movie, they may have actually drawn some inspiration from Sistov's entry, because I don't know if you remember his entry for the Ninjago movie, where it was the bus, where it was the guy with the axe. Do you remember that one?
I know his entry, but I'd have to assume it was just a coincidence.
Yeah, and the bus, it kind of like, you know, it sort of ducks down as he lands, as he sort of sits on it, you know, and you do get, I remember seeing the trailer, because I haven't seen the film, but I've seen the trailer where they have that in it, but I don't know if that is just a coincidence or...
It is interestingly similar, but I'd have to imagine that the film was more or less finished by the time the contest started.
Yeah.
Given the timing.
Okay, so according to the wiki page, the Ninjago movie one also said that you'll have a chance to be in the movie. And the Batman one, I don't know. That one I know for sure was on the DVD.
I guess we'd have to ask if anybody listening to this has seen the Lego Ninjago movie. Are there any brick films featured within?
I want to know this now. Oh wow, Rebrick is totally down now. Like, it doesn't exist anymore already.
Yeah, it's completely gone.
Dang.
But yeah, I suppose we should talk about your own stuff
Yeah.
rather than just sitting here reading wiki pages.
Yeah.
That works too.
Actually, I had a sort of a question, something that we've wanted to ask, actually, because Draw is probably one of the most confusing brick films I think most of us have ever seen. So,
Oh, classic. Yeah.
do you have like some insight into that you could kind of like tell us?
So, are you wanting me to tell you what is going on?
Or hint towards
Yeah.
how to interpret it.
Okay. Let me see if I can phrase this in a mysterious way for you guys. Well, for starters, the title is basically the theme. So it does have to do with a draw.
Go on.
I don't know how much detail I want to get into, because I like keeping it mysterious. Because I mean, I've been asked questions about this for years, so it's entertainment for me at this point. I don't want to ruin that, but at the same time, I do want you guys to be engaged with the film. you're still not gonna understand it even if I go into more detail. So it's probably okay. Yeah. So the theme of the film itself is like that's what I named it after. Draw, as in the main character is drawn away from himself and his character, if you will, towards the guy that I call him the machinist. And I think that's all the detail I'm gonna go into.
Funny because I always kind of while I'm watching it, sort of like I've always interpreted maybe the whole like mechanical and the side of it and the cogs and that kind of stuff as like being in his mind. I'm not sure if that was like an intention or.
Oh wow, I've never actually thought of it in that way because no, that's not. No, and the final scene kind of proves that wrong unless you take it in a less than literal sense, which is fair.
Well, I suppose I might as well ask about something that you might be able to answer in a more concrete manner.
Yeah.
More out of my own interest because I want to use similar techniques in the future. But when there is the light streaming in through the windows and it's kind of blown out and nice and hazy surrounding it, what was the setup for that?
It was pretty simple actually. I just built the room and stuck a lamp behind it, and that was the only light was coming through the window there. But I put wax paper over the window. Just tape some wax paper over that, and that diffused the light and spread it out across the window so it was a nice even light coming through, and it also gave it that hazy look because wax paper is it's kind of blotchy a little bit.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave it that cool look. I did that for the window of the study as well, except that was more well lit overall, so it's not as noticeable of an effect.
That's interesting. I was going to try out wax paper myself, but I think that knowing now to not light the room so much if I want to have the nice hazy effect, I think that's the sort of knowledge I was hoping to gain.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
thank you.
actually realize that was what it was until right now, but that's the only difference. I also did that technique for the window of the interview room in the film that I'm working on right now. I've posted a couple pictures of that a long time ago, like a year ago at this point, because that's when I was filming it. And I got kind of an in-between point there because the background of the room I kept darker than the actual character in the foreground, but I had the window like that, so I kind of got half hazy, I think.
How long have you been working on your current project for? Because I know I've been seeing many very nice GIFs and images on Twitter for a long time.
So I started it for Spirit of Adventure.
Okay, so that's going back a bit at this stage.
Just a little bit. I was gone for the first half of the summer, so I got back at the start of August and started writing the script. I finished the script mostly in that month, and then I was like, oh, well, now I'm never not going to be for the contest anymore, I guess. And so I kind of slowly I tweaked the script and cut it down a little bit. I actually cut a bunch out because it was going to be way too long over the next couple months. And then October, November of 2017, I started grabbing voice actors. I got a couple friends to voice the other two main characters, and they're both really good at ad lib. So I basically fed them the situations and fed them the interview questions and had them answer in character, and it turned out fantastically. I really can't wait for people to see those bits.
That's super interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Very little ad-libbing in Brick films.
Right? I was really hoping to get some in, and I did, and it's fantastic. I actually have a ton of extra ad-lib content that I was like, man, maybe I'll play this during the credits or something, because I just want to have it in here somewhere. And there are actually at least 3 or 4 shots where I like the dialogue enough that I just animated it anyway, even though I'm not going to use it, just so I can for sure put it in the credits or somewhere.
You totally should put it in the credits because I would imagine it would make people appreciate the ad-lib nature more if they were to watch the film again, knowing how it came together.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, what I was planning to do when I got around to that point, which I'm almost at. I just got the last set to work on now. I finished animating on this one. I just got to tear it down and build the last one and animate that. But anyway, what I was planning to do is have those clips kind of Pixar style, hopefully, where they play during the credits, and then play some just straight dialogue of us doing ad lib recording, because when messing up and stuff, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got those voice actors in September or October, and then I started animating in December of 2017.
And so when do you think the film might be coming out?
Hard to say. It'll be this year, unless I get delayed a ton. But as far as I know, my year isn't going to be horribly busy, so I should be able to get solid work on it done. And it's already February. I've spent the first month on the last set, and the next one is longer, so I'll probably spend more than just a month on it, depending on how much animation time I can get in.
Very bizarre feeling after having done so many time limited contests. It's weird to be able to take a month to build a set.
Right. I like it because I don't rush myself, and I can get it to a point where, like, okay, I'm happy with this. Now I'll start animating. And even when I'm animating, I'm like, I'm not happy with this, so I'm not going to keep it because I don't have to. At least to an extent. I mean, I'm still, if I'm taking an obscenely long amount of time, I'm just going to say, okay, I need to actually make progress. So I'll be okay with a little bit of flicker here or something because I like the animation. Or this part of the set, I'll just try to hide it because I don't know how to make it better without spending weeks more on this or something like that. But it's been an experience.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same, where even on a long project, it's very rare that I really want to reshoot something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think as well, like, I think if you spend, especially something that's like, you spend a year working on like a single project, you keep like rewatching stuff, and you'll go through phases, I think, of like, oh, you'll make up in your head that things look bad.
Yeah.
And then you go through that phase of thinking, yeah, this is terrible, and then you watch it again and you think, actually, it's good. It's like,
Yeah, it's been fun. I'll occasionally go back and just watch the old scenes that I filmed upwards of a year ago. And my memory is actually not too bad when it comes to them. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That still looks pretty good. Because, like I said, I haven't really been allowing myself to get away with a whole lot of low quality stuff. A few things here and there, and then there's just general the scene setup. If there's not much I can do, just work with what I have.
But yeah, I feel like you can spend too much time with a project, and then it's very hard to judge it yourself until, maybe a year or two has passed.
Yeah. You get to the point where you're nitpicking on the slight and the tiniest things, and you're kind of like constantly kind of going like, do I keep that line in, or do I take it out? And then like, I don't like how he puts his hand up at this shot, and you're going through all these like insane like nitpicks, and then like you kind of realize that no one's going to notice, because they're going to watch this film like once, and then it's like, I don't know, it's kind of. If you've seen it like 100 times.
Yeah, they haven't watched every single shot on loop.
Yeah, I've definitely had that to an extent where I'm like, oh, is that one frame? I don't know. It like, and then I'll just keep animating, and then I'll go back 5 minutes later and I'll play it back, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's not noticeable at all. Who cares?
Yeah, I know. That's like when you think, oh, this animation might be improved if I cut this one frame. Okay, no, it still looks bad. What if I cut the frame before that one? No. What if I cut the frame after that one? And it's like, okay, at some point you just have to say, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah. Generally speaking, though, I've actually been really happy with how it's all turned out, at least animation-wise, because I haven't really been approving shots unless I'm happy with them, or for some other reason I don't want to reshoot them, and that avoidance of reshooting outweighs my unhappiness. So either way, it's overall pretty happy with how it's turned out, and I can still look back and think, okay, yeah, I'm glad with how this shot turned out. Maybe there's some things I could improve, but I'm okay with this. And it's weird because I think it's definitely more so than in timed contests. I guess I feel like I need to be doing better.
Everything I've seen so far is looking great animation-wise, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the full film.
Yeah.
Me too.
Do you know, actually, one of the things that I've kind of got like inspiration from you actually is your use of tack, for the figures when they're not like when the feet aren't in shot. Like
Right.
that's a really cool technique.
That was something that I went into this project wanting to do. I was like, so basically, for a bit more context, for each of my bigger projects, I have something that I want to focus on doing. So for the Lose My Soul video, I just wanted to make it look as nice as possible. And by copying the video, I was able to have a reference for that. For Draw, it was supposed to be just like, I want to make like an art house film that nobody understands, but it's still kind of cool, right? Yeah. And for this film, I was like, okay, I want to make, first of all, a comedy, because I'm not really great at comedies. So I'll do a more subtle comedy. But on top of that, I want to have as expressive character animation as I want, because this is going to be very dialogue driven. So when they're talking or when they're moving and you can't see their feet, basically anytime you can't see their feet, they're on tack. So I can bounce them back and forth and have them move around dynamically. So they're not so static and just up and down arm movement. I'm doing the out of socket animation a lot to pull this off too. But that's been one of my focuses with this film specifically, is having them as expressive as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's kind of something that I think, madly enough, you can almost sort of forget to do. Like when it comes to like, I mean, you know, some things you always just remember to do. Like certain things, I think like walk cycle and stuff like that. I think you can.
That's what I was thinking.
But like when it comes to people like expressive animation, it's something you can easily sort of lose track of how you do it. And I think like you know, I always worry. Like, I look at my animation and I often think, do they look too robotic and stuff like that? I think using the tack actually is much more of it gives them more of a natural movement. And I think it's just, you know, subtle movements which you can't really necessarily get with just on the base plate, you know?
I like when you can follow through on a movement that is happening naturally.
Yeah.
Because if they're on the tack and you're moving one part, that they naturally are going to just lean a little bit one way. So if that starts to happen, you just have to keep going with it.
That's one thing that I found with this, is that it's actually really easy to get fluid movements just because of the way the tack works, and you can just continue movements. And I could even bump a character and turn it into a movement. It's surprisingly easy, and I wouldn't really say it's much harder than normal dialogue, just going up and down, because at that point you have to keep the character straight. And at least with this, you can move them all around and nobody cares, because they're supposed to be doing that.
It can be very annoying to try to move an arm up, but while keeping the figure dead straight on the studs and not have them wobble a little. So really, it kind of gives you freedom in that way, if you have them moving more at all times.
As well, though, I think it's just better anyway. It just seems more natural and just less robotic.
Yeah, more expressive.
You also, I feel like, especially with character animation, you don't want to just rely solely on easing in and out, because I think that gets very repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's a point at which it becomes too perfect. If everything is eased, it just kind of looks like computer generated almost.
Yeah,
it actually does. It can look a lot like that, those computer generated things where the movements are too slow and then they just ease in, ease out. It's like it's very robotic despite being smooth. I
think there is a genuine sort of an interesting kind of thing going on in brick filming at the moment, because I think people like Sanjura are really kind of pushing forward that idea of having that very cartoony style of animation. I think people are more open to like 12 frames per second and that kind of thing, where the animation is kind of, it doesn't really rely a lot on easing in and out, and it's kind of more blocky, but done in a kind of done with care, I think, if that makes sense. And it kind of it can work, I think.
Just Kidding popularized the style way back when, and now Sanjira brought it back in higher quality.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Just Kidding is the OG. And if it wasn't for Just Kidding, then you wouldn't see nearly as much of that from people like Sanjira, who started around that time that Just Kidding was pushing that stuff forward.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything goes into a sort of a cycle, I think. It got to the point where animation was becoming too perfect, and it's like, let's sort of try and go look back and try and do something with more character, I think. And Yeah, I think I really like that.
I guess if one style becomes too dominant, then you can stand out by going in the total opposite direction and doing it well.
Yeah, I mean, it may come to the point where everybody's doing the kind of, just Kid and Sanjira style, and then people are going to rebel by making everything look really smooth,
It could happen, yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
But I think what you were saying earlier, I think it's kind of interesting how, you're saying about you might accidentally knock someone over, and you sort of turn it into a movement. I think that's something that's an interesting idea. If you make a mistake, just sort of improvise and just go with it. That happens a lot with me. I gotta be honest. I'll have the film I just did. There's one shot where I was sort of panning back, and I knocked one of the characters over. So I just turned it into a bowl. He just sort of ducks down, because otherwise I didn't have to do the whole thing again.
I actually really like the idea of making a mistake but being able to work with it. I think it gives it more character, and at least it's not going to work for all styles. I mean, some people are going to want to make films that are very precise and planned, and that's fine. But I like the idea personally of being able to work with mistakes and turn it into something unexpected to literally anybody because it was an act of chance.
I think some of the best things about a film, and it could be any form of film, can often come from the mistakes or things that weren't intentional.
Yeah, and of course in stop motion it's rarer because it's all done frame by frame. There's not much room for something to just happen naturally.
And in any sort of animation, it's going to be rarer because it's a process that doesn't allow that so much. But that's one thing. Right from the start, I was trying to do kind of an unexpected thing with this by having my actors ad-lib their lines in the first place. So I'd be kind of figuring it out along the way. I had a script, but I just gave them the situation and worked with what I got.
And I feel like, though, it can happen not as a result of making a mistake, but sometimes you have an idea in your head of how a movement is going to look, and you start trying to achieve it, and it just kind of naturally takes you in a different direction. Once you start to see the first few frames coming out, you just think to yourself, clearly it should happen this way and not the way I was originally envisioning it. So you can get a little bit of improvisation from that.
Oh, I do that all the time. I have a general idea of the scene in my head, but if it looks terrible as I'm doing it, I'm just scratch that. I'm gonna do this a little bit differently.
I think actually that's one of the interesting things about Stack, is that you do get a lot of situations like this where you spent say half an hour working on this shot and it's not going the way you expected it to, but the time is going by. You just sort of think, let's just go with it. You don't necessarily have time to have a fully fleshed out storyboard, so you're just improvising as you go along. And I think that's kind of it. You end up with some really kind of raw sort of ideas there.
Well, for this stack, we actually did have a storyboard, and it was insanely helpful because we had two animation setups. We had the storyboard on Sync Sketch, so we could both have it open on our computer, and we would just be like, hey, I'm taking this shot, and then the other would know not to animate that one, and then we just cross it off once we were done with it. And so we could just flip through the storyboard and see what needed to be animated.
I was going to say that it becomes much more useful to have a storyboard when it's more than one person making it.
Exactly, yeah. So everybody's on the same page, and it can help that collaboration be pulled off smoothly.
Although, I mean, I'd say that in the end, it's easier to have a storyboard, even if you're just one person, because during THAC, I spent the first couple of hours trying to go without a storyboard, and I just realised I just couldn't do it. I'm so used to going by storyboards, and I think it's one of the things that in university they're kind of they try and really sort of force this idea that storyboards are essential, and as they sort of try and engrave it into your memory, and it's I just couldn't do it without a storyboard, so I just quickly drew up some sort of really badly drawn pictures because I just couldn't do it, I couldn't do it without a basic plan, I think.
I don't really ever use storyboards for myself. I like the idea, but I can never translate my mental image of what's supposed to happen to paper. I just play around with the camera until I'm like, okay, that's what I want. But for collaboration, it was really helpful for sure. And like I said, I like the idea of it. It means there's less for me to have to remember in the moment because I have the guide right there. But it just doesn't really work out that great in practice.
There's still something great about just making up as you go along. It's all a balance, I think. Some great things can happen that are not scripted, that are not storyboarded, and I think you shouldn't rely solely on just that. You should see how things go naturally, I think.
Yeah. And I don't want to cut myself off from being able to have something unexpected happen and then be like, oh, no, it's not in the storyboard, so I can't keep that.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess before we actually start counting down the films, I guess I might as well ask, what would you say is the most difficult thing that you've ever animated?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, yes, I know what it is. And it was 100% my fault because I was using clay and not sticky tack. In the end of the music video, there's one shot with the guy pulling out the gun. It's like 11 seconds long or something. And I was using clay on his arms. And he needs to be slowly bringing his arm up because it's in slow motion. It was not technically challenging, but because I did it poorly, that was so. I think I had 12 takes at least, and I if I just grab a few frames and I'm like, oh, that's not great, I don't start a whole new take. I just delete the frames and start over. Like a take is where I've gotten a significant chunk of this animated and then it got screwed up. So that was not fun. Technically speaking, probably something from Draw, where I was moving the camera around while stuff happened. I'm trying to think. Trying to animate in that hallway was kind of hard. I did make the walls removable so that I could get in there. One would think that the shot, like peering down from above, was hard, but that's actually super easy with my rig.
What sort of a rig is that?
It's got 2 pivot points on the camera, both vertical ones. So I can tilt up and down at 2 different angles and kind of work it around. I know that's not a great description, but I have a video on my channel that
I feel like I've seen that video actually now that you mention it. So it would be a shame now if you were to upgrade to a DSLR and you couldn't use a rig like that.
Right. I don't think I'm going to do that at this point, honestly. I'm so used to the C920. And actually, interestingly enough, that was the first time I ever shot on a DSLR for a film. And I didn't have any problems despite the fact that it was THAC.
Yeah, I feel it's not too hard to make the jump. I mean, there are things that are pretty different about it, but at the end of the day, you can still take pictures and string them together.
Yeah, if I had thought about it, I probably would have been more wary. Because I was like, oh, it's THAC. I mean, 24 hours if something goes wrong. I don't know. But I didn't really think about it that much. I was just like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. It'll match Chris's camera better because he's got an SL1.
The things that you've managed to do with a webcam, I think it's probably the best visuals that anyone's ever gotten out of a C920 between the Lose My Soul video and Draw as well.
Yeah, that too. I would have to work pretty hard to up that, and seeing as I can do nice stuff, and I know the limitations too. I know there are things like, oh, I shouldn't do this if I want to get a nice quality image because the webcam is so particular. For instance, low light is so much better than a lot of light because that blows out the camera's sensor and it looks terrible. So little light is much better for shooting in. Whereas with a DSLR, I could light it a lot and then have just some really bright lights and then, tone it down with the ISO and shutter speed.
Yeah.
So there's more maneuverability in terms of picture there. But I know how to work with it. I know how to get it to look nice. And so I would have to work pretty hard to learn the DSLR craft at this point.
Until I got a DSLR, I never realized how incredibly wide the lens of the C920 is.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm trying to just do close-ups, more or
Yeah.
less.
It's almost impossible to fill out a background with a webcam, I find now.
Right. Yeah. What would be so nice is literally this camera set up for lenses.
Yeah, that would be great.
And, you know, if I really felt like it, I could buy a C920, pull it apart, and build my own thing. But I don't want to do that. It's too much work.
I just think that with what you've managed to achieve with C920, I honestly kind of forgot that you used one.
Yeah.
Because it's just like the quality is just amazing. Yeah, and honestly, I think when you get to like 1080p, the quality is just you can it kind of blends with like DSLR. You can't really tell between the two. It's not that easy to kind of tell.
I have seen films that use both, and yeah, you wouldn't really know unless you're looking out for it closely.
Yeah, I would say that like the C920, the quality does decline a lot when you zoom in.
Because it's not a true zoom. It's just
Digital
blowing up the picture. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest disadvantages C920 has. I mean, I do it quite a lot, like zooming in, but I'm just trying to make sure I don't zoom in too much, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I would just kind of pretend that it doesn't even have zoom capability.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I don't want to compromise the quality.
I mean,
But
I'll
I mean-
crop a bit, but
A bit, only a tiny bit, yeah.
yeah.
When I saw the Lose My Soul video, I thought that was DSLR at first.
Mm.
But then, of course, there were these crazy camera close-ups, and is there a first-person arms shot in that, or am I thinking of something else?
There's not one of those in that.
Okay. But still, at some point you begin to question it, like, hold on a second. Could this be webcam? It looks too good, but some of these shots seem like webcam placements. So it's almost more impressive for you to continue using the C920, I guess, if you can make it that good.
Yeah, I've always been kind of the opinion that it's not necessarily about what you use, it's how you use it, I think, in a lot of ways. I think you can manage to achieve amazing things with not the best technology, and I think the C920 is, if you put your mind to it, you know, you make something that is as visually impressive as something done with DSLR.
Well, Mighty Wonder can at least.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've always just assumed that he's a wizard because, you know, after seeing those films, I take a look through my own C920 and I'm just thinking, why does it look like that?
Don't give away my secrets, Benta.
But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to ask before we head over to the countdown?
I was just going to suggest that if we're going to be talking about the TAC Top 10, we should probably get into it by now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sounds good.
Sure. Okay, so the 10th place was Specimen C Outbreak by Student Ninja Nerd.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is very visually impressive, I think. I mean, I'm probably going to say there's quite a lot of the entries this year, but it's true that the standards for the entries this year, like, they don't necessarily look like THAC films.
For sure.
Like, they just look really kind of, like, polished and they just look really nice, as you know, to sort of put it simply. And I think Specimen C is a great example of that.
I like how this one sets the mood well with the lighting and everything. It starts out very sterile and white and crisp, and then it kind of gets darker and murkier toward the end. And I think that sets the tone really nicely. That's probably my favorite part about it.
I like that there's a lot of inset lighting, but it's not done in a kind of show-offy manner. It's only there where it should be there.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed that he put so much basically in every set, even for TAC.
I didn't even really think about it until you mentioned it now. So yeah, that was subtle but effective.
Yeah, that's what I like. I also it's nice to see some of the more recent people climbing up the top 10s.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We got Fistoff and Student Ninja Nerd in the top 10, and Undershadow.
This stuff's basically been making top 10 since he began.
Yeah.
Oh wait, oh yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think it's just it's impressive how much like suspense he manages to build up in such a short length of time. Like it's only a little over a minute long, but that tension does build up. It has a moment of sort of like calm, you know, in the middle.
It feels longer than it actually is, and I don't mean that in a bad way. but he used it feels like it should be a lot longer because of everything that's in there, the building suspense and the calm moment and the well, I mean, those are the two big things.
Yeah, usually that would be a negative thing, but in the case of a tech film, it's a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually, first time I watched it, I imagined it was 3 minutes long. Like, I completely forgot that it wasn't. And then I watched it
I actually
again.
had the same experience. I thought
Yeah.
it was like 3 minutes, and then I looked back at it again. I'm like, oh, it's under 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So, we should talk about number 9 now.
Mortality.
Yeah, by James Coward.
This is what I was happy to see make the top 10.
This one was interesting. I like that there was a more dialogue-driven conceptual film in here.
Yeah. I think it's nice because I think a lot of the time Thack is sort of taken over by a lot of very funny films. It's nice to have one that's genuinely quite serious. It's a nice story actually. That kind of idea that I guess not being afraid of your mortality and sort of living life as much as you can. I guess. Yeah, I like those kind of stories. I also think it's really nicely shot, and I like a lot of the lighting, especially when he's talking to his friend. It's kind of dark, and yeah, I like that. The animation is also really nice, and yeah, I think it's just like conceptually, it stood out from most of the films.
Yeah, conceptually it's rather unlike the other entries, or many things we ever see for Thack.
That's my favorite part about it, the conceptual side of it, and especially because it's a Thack film, and it stands out because of that.
I think there's like, if I had like one criticism, his interaction with his friend is a little weird. Like he doesn't seem very shocked or sympathetic about the fact that he's dying. If that makes sense. Like I get the idea. I mean, I think a lot of it is the time restraint and that kind of thing, where you need to get the story across. But like he's very kind of just like, oh, that shouldn't stop you. It's kind of like, I don't know. If it wasn't a Thack film, you probably would have had more time to develop that, I think.
If I was to criticize it, it would be that I laughed at the scream at the end. It just comes out of nowhere, and it's so loud and screamy, It would be an absolutely fantastic comedy film scream.
At least it's not like a hushed scream like you have in half of the Thack films where it's like, ah! So, points for realism at least. Not realism, but, effort.
Points for
now
actually
now
screaming.
I sound insensitive. I apologize.
But one kind of visual thing I really like about the film is that whole thing of him running backwards and then it kind of turning into him running forwards is just like a really nice visual thing. I like that. For something that's kind of dialogue heavy, it was some sort of like visual storytelling in that, I think, which I liked.
Yeah, it's good to kind of tie it all together. Yeah.
Add in something visually. I mean, the visuals are nice throughout, but yeah.
Have the visual conceptual as well as the dialogue.
Yeah.
The conceptual dialogue.
Yeah, that's what's nice.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the last time I'm going to say this because I'm going to say this a lot otherwise, but again, it doesn't look like a Thack film. That's just like, I think that's like the standard of this Thack is that they just, a lot of them just, they have a lot of like different sets and, a lot of detail, in them. Just, when you compare it to a lot of like the early Thack, films, it just, they don't look like Thack films. And again, it's like there's a couple of different sets actually in the film. I think there's 4 sets.
That is something that I often consider is how far it has come and what people know is possible to achieve with Thack. Because if you watch early Thack films, it's like they don't even, a lot of them are just one shot the whole way through, and oftentimes one set. It was so unproven. Whereas nowadays, so much has been done. People know that it is possible to make a slightly longer film or multiple sets that are nicely lit, even within 24 hours.
Yeah. People are really pushing the boundaries of what is possible in 24 hours. Because I think in the early years, it was kind of like, admittedly, I'm not going to make something that's that great. It's 24 hours. Let's not try and be too ambitious. But like in this day and age, people know some of the films that have been made in 24 hours, and they're kind of just, let's just try and make it look really polished and make it look more like, I don't know, a role film,
I just hope it doesn't go too far. You could get to the stage where everyone tries to go too ambitious and then there's like no entries because they all failed.
Yeah.
That would be really sad.
Yeah, I think there was kind of like something that Nathan Wells did say actually in the last episode of the podcast about not trying to be too ambitious, because it's going to happen when you try just a little bit too hard and it's just not going to work.
I mean, if it keeps going higher and higher every single year, it might eventually happen that there's a noticeable dip and everyone will say, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And then in the next week or two, suddenly all these absolutely mind-blowing films will come out and they'll all say, this was originally supposed to be for TAC.
Yeah. But yeah, shall we head over to...
yeah, we should talk about Reflexive now.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was one that I was really happy to see be in the top 10. I just like the whole concept of having a mirror, just like in general. It's just a really cool idea. And it's some really nice visual storytelling in this film. And again, kind of a more serious film.
Yeah, and it's more conceptual like the last, which is nice to see. A couple of them in the top 10. Well, I guess even A Day in the Park could be considered conceptual. It's not quite as serious as Mortality, though.
I think the interesting thing about Reflexive is that it does have a kind of, I suppose, almost like cartoony animation style.
It does, yeah.
Despite it being quite serious. It's quite surprising, I think, the end. It makes it kind of surprising when you realise that it is actually quite serious,
Maybe there's a bit of a disconnect. Maybe it's kind of a bit strange for it to have such cartoony animation despite not being a cartoony premise.
I think it could have benefited from some more serious animation, which admittedly does take longer, and it's THAC. So it's,
But I know that, Undershadow has been using more cartoony animation style the whole time and is quite good at it.
That's true. It's true.
So it must just come naturally to him.
I think it is kind of, at the end of the day, it's kind of what you're more like familiar with. And I think a lot of people these days are more kind of familiar with that cartoony animation, whereas I don't know, I think I sort of struggle to do cartoony animation actually.
Yeah, THAC is really good for just running with what you know how to do, because you know how to do it well and you can produce a film quickly.
Yeah.
Using what you know how to do well.
It's an interesting kind of example of what comes out of THAC, I think, actually. That kind of, something that's kind of conceptual, but it's done in a cartoony way. Whereas I think if you had more time, you maybe not have animated it that way.
Perhaps.
I really like the end, though. How it ends with that above shot.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
I suppose at the end of the day, though, you're still looking at Lego, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe we're overthinking it.
Oh yeah.
That's a possibility.
I mean, if you're gonna get like overly picky, like the hairbrush in one of the shots, it's not exactly the same as it is in the reflection. I mean, you can nitpick.
Yeah, there's no point to that.
No.
Anyway, good film.
Yeah, it's good film.
10 out of 10. So, hey, You Can't Go Home by Tistoff is next.
Yeah.
This is certainly one of my favorites.
This was really cool. Did you guys see the behind the scenes video that he made?
Yeah.
Showed the process of the kaleidoscope effect.
Kind of like as soon as that came out, I was like, I've got to watch this, because I was actually genuinely kind of like really kind of amazed, like how was this done, and it's I think the way that the process that he went through to make it is actually really interesting in itself.
I'd like to know if he came up with how to make the effect before TAC, or if he just had a general idea of how you might do it and only tried it for the first time, because I can't imagine trying to get that to work and look right during TAC. It sounds like a nightmare.
It sounded like he had a general process down from the video, but he made a comment about having to tweak the process because something wasn't working out like it was supposed to. So at least part of it was not done beforehand, as far as I can tell. I could be wrong about that, but that's the impression that I got from the behind the scenes video.
Yeah. I remember him saying something like on the day of THAC that I don't think he was planning to actually release this as a THAC film, because he was going to make this music video anyway, but then I guess he just decided that it was going to be a THAC film.
That's possibly what stands out the most to me about it is it came out so well that it feels as if you could have, if you had spent months and months working on it, you could have achieved the same result, and it would have been good still. So it's interesting that he managed to make it this good in just one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have done this without being Stack, and it really just sort of show what you can do in 24 hours. I think like that, you know.
And I always love these non-minifig films where there's just bricks kind of going around the place.
Yeah.
They always appeal to me greatly. And I like how he uses the bricks to occasionally tie in with the lyrics.
My favourite part is how he uses the trees. And, you know, you have, like, different sized trees, and they kind of... That was really cool, I thought.
Yeah, and I especially like when the trees continue to blink in and out over the next thing that comes in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how he did that. I didn't even... That did not register that it was trees.
It's like the first time I saw it, I didn't actually believe it was real. if that makes sense. It's like, it looks so kind of... I thought it was some sort of digital effect or something. It looks so good, you know?
Yeah.
It was really interesting seeing his process, because I'm glad he did make a video about it, because I was generally like, how did you make this, you know?
Yeah, it was definitely one of my favourite entries, but at the same time, I was kind of wondering if it was going to make the top 10 or not, because I'm not sure if it... Does it relate to the theme much?
I guess he discovered that he could make it.
But it did manage to get in there.
Yes, and I'm glad about that. I actually watched the behind the scenes video before I watched the video itself, because I saw it on Twitter and I just played it and I was like, oh, he made that one. Because I hadn't gotten around to watching the entries yet.
I really like when he showed the uncropped, like, original frames animation, and you can see there's just a bunch of random stuff strewn around just outside of where it's actually going to be captured.
Yeah.
Or, like, suddenly he's just holding something with his hand still in the frame. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's really cool. But I think it's as well, like, there are just times, I think, when the film is just so good that it kind of just... It has to have a place in the top 10, even if it's not really necessarily too connected to the theme. I think this is like one of those examples, you know.
That's what I feel about this one, yeah. It's like, you couldn't exclude it.
Yeah.
So in sixth place is Old Man Jack by Ice Fox.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, once again, incredible visuals for a Attack film.
Yeah.
That's kind of a running theme here.
It's nice for just a normal film, but especially for a Attack film. So much smooth animation and nice techniques. My favorite shot is right there at the end where he just slams his hand down on the door and the trunk falls shut. I thought that was great.
It's a really nice car as well, actually.
Yeah.
And it has an opening boot.
I was just going to comment on that. It is a really nice car design, and I think, I don't know, you know, cars are kind of notoriously difficult to make in Lego form without them coming across as a bit weird. And it is a really nice car design.
Reminds me a lot of the film I made for TAC 12.
Oh, yeah, well, Warshaw.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, like, this film reminds me a lot of Warshaw, actually. As a concept, I think. And the car and everything, yeah.
In the ending sequence, a guy with his mouth binded in the boot that is an actual opening boot of a car.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he saw that or if it's just a coincidence.
I thought it was nice that you could tell he put some thought into the sound design here. It's not just your stock sounds that you find in brick films a lot.
Yeah, and I always find the sound design is probably the hardest thing to do anyway decently for tech.
Right, yeah.
Usually it's put off until the end.
That's what I did.
In my case, yeah.
I spent so little time on that.
It's so hard because I think generally you want to spend a long time in the post-production, and when it comes to THAC, you've like spent, say, 22 hours animating. You're like, oh, right, okay, I've gone a little bit too far, like it's getting quite late now, I need to start editing this, and you have to very quickly find like stock sounds, and you know.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah. It's great if you can manage to spend a decent amount of time working on the sound design.
I kind of feel like I always look at the time remaining, and it's like in my mind it only registers as time to animate.
Yeah.
Animation, and then you're done. That's how it works, right?
But then suddenly there's 4 hours left, and you're thinking, oh my god, I have to edit this entire film.
Yeah. I always think, oh, well, you know, it's fine. You can have like an hour and be fine, and then you just realise that Yeah, that editing process is the thing that can really sort of, like kill you, really. But, one of the things I really like about the film as well is the outside shots. You've got a really nice depth of field.
Yes.
I thought the forced perspective was really good, and there's like a couple of layers of mountains, and I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
And I really like how he had the foreground scrolling along as he walked. That was a nice effect.
Yeah, I did a film with a car in a desert as well, but his desert certainly looks a lot more real. It actually keeps going. So for Tak, again, impressive work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Should we continue to the top 5?
Yeah, I suppose we shall, yeah. So, Wasteland by Trick-a-Brick.
Yeah, no surprise to see Trick-a-Brick in here.
Yeah.
This is another one that definitely feels longer than 1:20, at least to me.
Yeah. I think it's very atmospheric, in the same way that I think the previous one was. There's a really nice sense of atmosphere, I think. I really like the opening shot, actually, a lot. That first wide shot, get to see the area a lot, and I don't know, I think it's a very nice looking film. I mean, as to be expected with Trick-a-Brick, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One of those kind of films that it's got a really nice... It takes a lot of time to really sort of build up that kind of feel. That's probably its strongest point, is its atmosphere.
I really like, and this is a really subtle thing, but I really like the walking in this film, especially in the start. The first shot where he kind of slows down and then stops walking, it's not like he just walks up to a point and stops moving. He's actually walking along and then slows his steps and comes to a halt and then notices the lantern. And I think that was a really nice effect that pulled off the atmosphere. This guy is in the cold. He's just kind of walking along and he's tired, and then he just slowly slows down and comes to a stop before noticing a heat source.
Yeah, it's very impressive because I often find that it's really difficult to get those really exact movements when a figure's walking.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of the things I need to kind of work on is working out like a walk cycle where like when you slow down, it doesn't just suddenly stop. Like have more frames for that kind of slowing down kind of thing.
Yeah,
easing in for walking or easing out for walking.
Yeah,
I've been trying to break out of just using the same old walk and run cycles as well.
Walk cycles are really weird because I think you could literally do the exact same thing twice and they won't have the same results. Like sometimes it'll just look terrible and then other times it'll look perfect. It's really strange. And I think your opinions of that animation can change every time you watch it. It's like, actually, this doesn't look terrible. It looks good, But one of the things I really like in this as well is he moves his head. I think it's about 14-15 seconds into the video. And he continues to walk. That kind of detail is really nice. Because that's sort of the type of thing that I think people forget to do. Adding that kind of thing.
It's the little details.
Earlier we were talking about using the blue tack when the feet aren't in view. And I feel like you could use that to good effect to make the walking better. I mean, in your own works, obviously it's great in this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you see French Wines by Maxime Marion? There's one shot in that where a figure is walking very expressively, and it's very unlike the usual walk cycle that's in every film.
I did see that. I don't remember the walk cycle bit, though.
It's the kind of thing that I'm looking at and thinking, I'd like to incorporate techniques like that.
Yeah.
What is because the standard walk cycle for I guess 15 FPS, but also works in 12, is that 4 points,
frame,
isn't it? Yeah. I kind of think that sometimes it just looks too fast.
I always do a 6-step. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 frame. Because I don't like how fast it is at 4 frames.
Yeah, I think perhaps that's something that I want to try out, I think. I guess you'd need tack, I suppose, to get it exactly right.
Not necessarily. It really depends on the legs and the base plate or plates that you're using.
Yeah, it is possible without tack.
Yeah, I've been able to pull it off without tack. I'd say at least the majority of the time I do at least use a little blob in the corner of a foot that you can't see in the camera just to kind of hold it in place a bit better.
I find the 6-frame walk incredibly finicky though.
It is, but it looks so much better if you pull it off right.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, I'm not sure if I'd want to do a 6 frame and a walk cycle when you've got like, I don't know, 5 figures walking
no.
around. Like, I think in that case, I'll just have to go with the 4. I think.
I animated that no, it was a couple days ago. I did that with 4 figures, all on the 6 walk cycle.
Oh well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of thing that a large project would allow.
Yeah, not a Thack film. Not
No.
suggesting to do that for Thack.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
the kind of shot that you'd take the entire day just for that one shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe that kind of 4-frame walk cycle might be better for a sort of in between, walking and running, kind of like a walking in a fast pace.
Speed walking.
Yeah, speed walking. Yeah, I think that'd probably be better for that. Maybe if you go by the the 6 frames.
Yeah, it's a brisk pace for sure. It'll have its uses. Might as well have a couple different speeds that you know how to do.
Yeah, I guess it really just depends on what angle you're filming from. Because I think like a wide shot, and you're kind of like I think like that wide shot we have in Wasteland actually. I think a 4-frame walk cycle would work fine with that. It's just I think when you're facing someone or you're looking for them from behind, that walk cycle just looks too fast then, I think. But yeah, I guess, I mean, aside from the walk cycle, is there anything else you'd like to say about the film, I suppose?
Well, kind of related, but I just feel like the atmosphere is so strong that you don't notice exactly that it's a lot of walking. Because, there's a lot of brick films where I see them and I think to myself, oh, there's too much walking. You should have cut that out and just, gone somewhere else. But in this, it actually makes sense. So I think that's worth pointing out.
Yeah, that's true.
But I could draw a comparison to a film that Twickenbrick made, released in 2009, that's called Kensington. There's one sequence in that where a guy walks down like an entire street and the camera follows him the whole way and it just keeps going and going and going, and he turns the corner and he walks up to the door and it's just like it wasn't thought out why all of this walking is being shown to the viewer. Whereas in this film, it's all deliberate. It's much different to how I often feel about lots of walking in a brick film.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like, I think this is true of live action as well. You've got to kind of work out how much walking is really essential, because sometimes you need it to kind of, for pacing, I think you need like maybe, I don't know, an extra 4 seconds of someone walking. But then sometimes, those 4 seconds of somebody walking just a little bit too long, And I think sometimes I think it's like you have to go by case, but
Yeah, always.
if it's something that doesn't really have a lot of atmosphere, then it's probably best to kind of keep it to a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the main point that I was trying to get across. It's that I often feel like you should try and minimize the walking, but it's not universal.
Yeah.
There's always an exception.
Always, yes.
So, shall I head over to A Day in the Park?
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we spent enough time talking about walking.
Yeah. So yeah, The Day in the Park by Silent Frames. Yeah, I mean, this is a really nice looking film, I think. I think Silent Frames has a sort of a specific look, I think, to his films. Like, you can always kind of tell somehow. I think it's him. There's a really nice, I think it's a really nice sort of like warm looking film.
Yeah, it is very warm looking, actually.
Yeah, it is. I really like his set. It's well fleshed out, which is nice for a Thack set.
It looks really nice out of focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great background.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses a lot of tight focus, so it's nice.
Yeah. I have to be honest, like, the first time I watched this, I didn't know how to react to it. And I'm still kind of, like, a bit unsure exactly how to interpret it, if that makes sense. Like, so at the very end, I mean, you see that he's in a wheelchair and he's sort of tied up. I don't know exactly what that's supposed to mean.
I think that's him strapped into the bike seat, because you can see his mom is standing next to a bike here. So I think this is just one of those like kid trailer things.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a
Right.
wheelchair.
I thought that it was like this is all in his head and he's
Yeah.
like, insane or something.
That's what I was thinking the whole time as well.
At first, I actually I don't know why, but I thought it was supposed to be like a joke, and I thought, wait, this is not funny. And then,
Yeah, I was a little confused the first time I watched it, because I was like, wait, is he supposed to be disabled or something? that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But then I saw the bike and I was thinking, oh, okay, it's probably one of those trailers that you stick the kid in. He's strapped into that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
glad you mentioned it, because I wasn't sure what to make of it. And now that you mentioned it, I'm pretty sure you can actually see the thing that he's strapped into at earlier points in the film, and obviously he's not in it. Like, you can just about make it out in the background of certain shots, I think.
Oh, okay. That clears a lot up, because I was really kind of confused by the film.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, 121. You can just see the bike handles and something yellow behind it.
Well, if you go to 015, you can see the whole thing, and
Oh,
it's not connected to the bike, but
oh yeah, you're right.
it looks like, yeah, it just connects onto the back of the bike there. It's just a trailer.
Well, I gotta say, I'm glad that that you've mentioned
yeah.
that idea, because it didn't cross my mind before.
Mystery solved. Silent Frames, if you're listening and we're completely wrong, let us know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess now they got that out of the way. It is it is actually a really nice film, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, again, as I said before, it's a very warm looking film, and I just really like that effect of, you know, that kind of fading into stone and stuff. It's really cool. Yeah.
This feels like a very classic Thak film to me. Not
Yeah.
like an old film where it's low quality or anything, but it just feels like a classic Thak film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very simple film, but it's just done it's executed in a really nice way, I think.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So shall we head over to the top
three.
Top 3.
Yeah. So at number 3 we've got The Office Job by Two Awesome Guys. And this one I'm really happy to see make the top 10, because I think this is this really stood out to me as being one of the most kind of like polished films, I think, out of Thak.
Yes, definitely.
Easily, yeah. Yeah, we've been complimenting the visuals of, I think, almost all the films so far, but this one really looks good. It doesn't look like a Thak film at all.
Not in the
Yeah.
slightest. It's so clean. It kind of reminds me of Repelling Spider stuff in terms of how clean it is.
I can see that, yeah.
And I think it's when you really look at the whole film, there isn't like a whole lot going on necessarily, but I think it's just like everything is just shot and
Yeah, I think that even makes the shots more impressive, because yeah, not a lot is
Yeah.
going on, but each shot seems so deliberate and well executed.
That's the word I was going to use exactly. It's very deliberate and it shows. It's great.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of actually of Released, which Nathan picked for the last episode, which again was a Thak film.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison. I guess that's the key. If you want to come third in Thak, make a silent film in an office that's nicely shot.
Yeah.
I know what my plan is next year.
Yeah.
But you've already come second. You got to aim for first now.
No, I have to get third and then I come in first. That way I can secure all 3 of the places.
Ah, nice plan. And I guess I mean, you could say this about pretty much every entry from this year, but like it doesn't seem like a Thak film. It seems it is very polished. It's very, you know, precise and deliberate, and I really didn't expect this kind of standard, I don't think. Like, I was thinking of like the Released as like being this kind of like film which is very unusual for Thak, you know, like usually you can see that it's, yeah, clearly they've put a lot of work into it, but not necessarily like the best you could do. But like this is really something else. And I think maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that most of these entries are pretty short. I think the longest one is only like 2 minutes long.
In the top 10 at least, yeah.
Yeah. You have like a shorter film, but just spend more time on the small details. So it ends up really benefiting. I really like this one.
Yeah, this one I was certainly happy to see come in the top 3.
Yeah, I'm really glad it made it too.
Again, another kind of, I suppose, conceptual film. Again, kind of another sort of theme that seems to have appeared in this Thak, actually.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Well, we should talk about second place.
Yeah, I guess you should introduce this one.
Yeah, would you like to introduce this one?
Goblin Rush by myself and Chris of Sloth Paladin, and then our friend Sean. Yeah.
Just Sean.
Just Sean.
Yeah.
First off, yeah, I just wanted to say that it's kind of amusing that There's somebody who has a co-creator credit of a TAC winner that doesn't even have a Bricks in Motion account.
He does, technically, but he can't remember what it is. And it was an account he made with a friend of his for THAC 10 or 11.
Did he actually enter?
He did,
Uh-huh.
yes. I could actually, if you want me to, I could go dig through the results and find which one it was his. It would take me a minute, though.
It's entirely possible that it's listed somewhere on the wiki page.
I don't know if it's on the wiki, but I know I found it before in the THAC results from that
Because
year.
I have the full results, or the full list of entries for all years now.
Oh, they're all in one page?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were still rating every film that came in, so...
Well, if you do remember the account name, and if he wants the password changed so that he can re-access it, that could always be arranged.
Yeah, we'll see if I can find it.
So I believe there's an interesting story as to how you got into collaboration with Sloth.
Yeah, it was probably upwards of a year ago. I was on Overwatch, just playing a game with some friends, and a guy on my team, I know towards the end of the game, it was really close to the end of the game, I noticed his name was Sloth Paladin, and I was like, wait a second, that looks familiar. And so I just asked him in team chat, hey, are you with the Bricks in Motion Sloth Paladin? He was like, and he actually didn't see my message because like a couple more minutes of the game passed and he said nothing. So I asked again, and I think he didn't see that one either. So I whispered him or something because I was like, I really want to know now. So, and then what I did is I pinged him in the Bricks in Motion Discord because he wasn't looking at the chat at all in Overwatch. And he was like, oh, wow, yeah, that was me. So we started talking, and turns out he moved to Portland here. So he's like 40 minutes away from me. And last year, the Microsoft store downtown was having events where they would set up a bunch of computers and we could play Overwatch on them. So we got a group together, and he came a couple of the times. So we kind of got to hang out a little bit. And then when THAC rolled around, I had done THAC with Sean last year, so he was planning to come again. And Sloth was like, hey, I'd be down for helping out if you have room. I was like, ooh, yeah, let's do that. So we planned that all out. We didn't really actually get any of the details down until like the week before.
In the spirit of things.
Right? And the Wednesday, I don't know, did you guys watch the documentary I made?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you saw the Wednesday that preceded THAC. He and Sean, because they're both on the other side of town, went to Bricks and Minifigs to grab parts. And we, on Monday, I think, 2 days before that, we had met, the three of us, just to kind of figure out what we wanted to do. And we had kind of decided on the D&D theme beforehand, because we had them, and more specifically, we had decided on doing multi-scale things. So we had that general concept in mind. So they were able to grab some pieces with the idea in mind that we'll be building faces and stuff. So we had decided that beforehand. And so we were going into it thinking, something Dungeons and Dragons related, where we can have the dice like squishing a guy at some point, maybe gags like that. And then the contest rolled around and the theme was discovery. And it was just too easy to have a simple encounter. So we rolled with that. It was not too hard to throw together a quick story and storyboard it all. And Chris had come over the night before, Friday evening, set up his computer and animation studio and everything in the garage. So we had 2 different animation studios going on, mine and his. And then Sean was doing building and stuff in between. And behind the scenes footage, a lot of that is his. Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you had 2 animation setups going at the same time, because usually the impression that I get from collaborative THAC entries is that's not the case.
Yeah, we figured it would be best because we were focusing on style over like length or story. So we could easily just spend all our time getting the stylistic things down. And then I edited it as we went along. So when he was done with a handful of shots, he would hand me a thumb drive and I'd stick those in where they were supposed to go. And then he'd go shoot some more and give me another thumb drive. And we didn't finish animating until like 1 or 2, and at that point I really needed to start editing. So I did the sound design and all the transitions and everything.
Yeah, I like the transitions between the sort of big world and the in-game world.
Yeah, that was a really nice effect, actually.
And thanks. I really like how that turned out, honestly.
So, how did you kind of split the amount of animation together then? Was it because all three of you did actually animate? Is that right?
Sean didn't animate. He was
right.
building sets and props for us in between.
So is it kind of like a 50-50 the way you split it together with the animation?
More or less. It was more time spent. So Chris did less animation overall, but that's also because he spent like 2 hours working on the first close-up shot of the head, because he was figuring out, how do I position the head to make it look nice? How do I animate this without it breaking apart all the time? All of that stuff. So the first thing I animated was the chest shot with the light behind it.
Yeah.
And so I just started building that and animating that while he went to start working on faces. So we were just kind of like, okay, I have an idea for what I want to do for this, so I'm going to start working on that. He was like, okay, I'll go work on faces. So he just spent the majority of his time doing each of the face shots, because they were all done by him, and we had one face for each character. That was kind of the idea, is that we had like the chest thing, the chest being opened was by the rogue guy, and then the goblin being shot, he had a close-up of the archer guy, and then the barbarian had his close-up at the end. So he spent most of his time just knocking those out, and then he did a couple of the goblin shots at the end. You can tell because he's got that really forced perspective that I wasn't able to get with my lens.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can tell who's doing what as I watch the film.
Yep, his lights are all so much yellower than mine.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'd say, the easiest giveaway.
Yeah, I toned it down as much as I could. Oh, wait, no. The first shot he did was them peering over the edge of the chest into it. He was actually doing that one first, and then he started on the faces. So basically, he was like, hey, I have an idea for this. You have an idea for that. Just do that. Do our separate thing. He started working on the faces because I had started doing the mini scale thing with the side shot of all of the characters sliding up into the middle.
Yeah, now you said that, I can see the difference in the lighting, actually, from the different shots. That is interesting, actually.
I fixed it as best as I could, but it was that. There was only so much I could do.
Yeah.
I feel like it was an interesting decision to go with the sort of Pokeball and style large faces with some mouth animation for Thak.
Yeah, we just wanted to make this one a fact to remember.
Yeah,
and
certainly makes it stand out.
Was 100% an influence there.
I remember hearing Chris say that you had Pokeballing playing as you were animating.
I think he did, actually. He was in the other room, so I didn't see his active animation process aside from popping in occasionally. I know I had it up on my computer in the other room just so I could flip over to it if I needed to, but I didn't end up doing the faces, so I didn't actually use it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had it up on his for a reference.
I think one of the interesting things actually as well with this is that you end up with actually 4 different scales, because you've got the minifigures, you've got the micro figures, those sort of figures you have with like games, and
yeah, the what are they called? There's minifigures. Oh, those are the micro figures, the ones that are for the games.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like the Heroica ones.
And then you've got like the big scale Pokeball in style. I think that's really quite great, because it's like you wouldn't really think about like having that many different scales, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, I really wanted to push it, and like when we got together to just kind of talk about this, I actually took Chris's notebook and sketched out like a plot of how the different scales would work. So you have the real life scale of just the people playing, and then a branching off of that is the macro scale of that. And then branching off in a different direction with the game board, you've got the minifigures, and then the minifigure scale of the game board, and then the micro figure scale of the game board. Yeah, and so it was effectively 4 different levels. We actually decided on what characters were going to be included because of Heroica. I think we had the Dungeons and Dragons idea beforehand, and then we were talking about it, and somebody was like, hey, there's Heroica micro figures. And then I was like, ooh, hey, let's push this as far as we can possibly. Let's get all the scales in here if we're going to have 2 anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often feel like I'm not particularly up to date on what exists in Lego. And there could be something that somebody that, most people know about, and they'll say, hey, this exists in Lego, right? And I'm like, wow, amazing. I didn't know that they had that.
Yep.
I could totally use that in a film.
Yeah.
I totally could have used that last week.
It was kind of funny, I think, watching the behind the scenes video and, watching Sloth make all the, the funny noises for the characters. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's always nice to see the documentaries.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed I didn't get any video of Sean or myself doing our voices, because I was hoping to have all three of us in there, but got some solid footage of Chris. I have like 3 or 4 minutes of that. I put in a few seconds of it. It was fun to sort through.
I suppose we should probably talk about the first place winner now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Sentinel.
The Sentinel.
Which is, of course, by Mind Game and Nathan Wells.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
2 collaborations taking the top 2 spots.
controversial.
Yeah.
Mm.
This is definitely a big year for Nathan Wells and Zach Macias, who together have they've just won, was it Brick Stars, first place for best English language film, and now as well winning THAC with Sentinel. That's a pretty great achievement, I think.
And I imagine they'll do well in the BFG Awards as well.
Yeah.
Already nominated in almost every category. But yeah, I gotta say that I know Zach managed to enter last year, but I was very happy to see that both Zach and Nathan actually managed to finish by the deadline.
Yeah. I think people are starting to make jokes in the chat about, we'll see it in 2021.
In 4 years' time, yeah. So, I mean, I know that Nathan's been hosting TAC for a good few of the recent years, but yeah, it's the first time he's actually finished an entry on time since TAC 4, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Would that have been Unsound?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, it's cool that he was able to enter again and win first place.
Again.
Right.
I guess that, I mean, again, very sort of cliche, as I've said this already several times, but it doesn't look like a TAC film. But also, another thing I'd sort of say as well is that, again, it doesn't feel like it's 1.5 minutes,
I think maybe we'd have to update our general impressions of what TAC films are supposed to look and feel like.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back through the top 10 and say, they're all pretty much standard. Everything for TAC looks great these days. Although, of course, that's not true. These are all top 10 for a reason.
But then we'll be sort of going on, like, nitpicking and like, this only looks great, I mean, it should look absolutely amazing. It's not, but it's just great,
How dare you not have Nathan Wells and Zach Macias levels of animation?
I think what stands out in a big way about this film is the amount that is implied. It's less than 2 minutes long, but it implies a greater world and events that have taken place.
Yeah.
It sets all that up story-wise very well in a short amount
It's
of time.
great world building, I suppose you'd say. You get an idea of the whole story. I mean, obviously it's helped by the narration, but it gives you a really good idea of the sort of world. And I think you end up, you finish it wanting to know more, I think.
And I feel like if you can pull off that feeling, then your film's going to stand out.
Yeah.
One thing that I really liked about this that I thought stood out, and I think Zach mentioned it in Discord, or maybe it was on Twitter later, so I was like, oh, that's nice, is with stuff floating in space, and specifically that last shot of the statue, how he actually has it turning so you can see it orbiting and floating in space. It's not just like a static image that he had floating around. He actually animated it turning, and it looks like it's in orbit there. And then earlier when he's got the ship approaching, it's actually moving away from the camera, and it's not just, again, a static image of the ship moving towards the Sentinel.
Yeah, I think we've all seen the times in Brick films when it's just a cutout that's just being moved digitally, and it just never looks as convincing. And of course, I mean, I've done it as well.
I mean, I think it's actually that's actually a really nice detail. I mean, watching that shot now, there's a really nice kind of like rotation. Again, you wouldn't be able to do it if it was just one image. It does actually turn, and I'm really sort of like looking at the edges of the object very sort of closely, and the green screen work is just sort of phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, it's very clean.
I mean, you kind of expect that, from like Zach Macias and Nathan Wells, but like it is really clean, and I don't think I could ever have the patience to do that at all, let alone in a Thak film, I think.
Another thing that I liked, and it's another small thing, but in the shots of the party from the flashback, you've got Zach's sig fig that walks across the screen, and then it match cuts to focusing on what I assume is the captain. I'm not sure, but I just really like that, and it makes it, both of these things just make the whole film feel really clean and polished. It's really nice attention to detail that I like.
I wonder if this was intentional, but the captain, he looks it's actually the same as the character from The Meek and the Bold. I don't know if that was intentional. I'd have to ask Nathan that, I think.
I wouldn't say so.
But yeah, I think it's a really nice animation. I think there's a lot of this kind of like, floating around stuff.
The floating is really good, yeah.
Yep. I mean, I know it's a little cheaty because it's Thak, but I like how he used the black wire, or maybe it's just normal wire that's wrapped in electrical tape or something, to suspend a lot of the floating things. It's super subtle. You don't notice unless you're really looking for it, but I assume it really helped their process in finishing this, and it has a great effect without having to be green screened in or masked out.
I kind of like that, actually, sort of keeping the sort of rigs in, if the rigs are not kind of too noticeable.
I agree, yeah. I like it when people have inset lighting, but they don't try and hide the wires at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to have, a couple of, I suppose, seams, like... I think one of the things that I know a lot of people don't worry about too much is remnants of Thak, sometimes.
Yeah.
That's something I don't really worry about too much.
I keep forgetting, so I'm sure there's little remnants of Thak if you look closely in the video I'm working on. That's what mostly happens to me, but generally I'll clean it up.
One of the things that I get, and sometimes I don't notice it until I've finished, is like, you get bits of dust or a hair or something, and that happens a lot with me in the past. And there's a scene from one of my films where someone walks over hair, and it always annoys me every time I watch it. It's like, how could I not notice that when I was doing it,
Yeah, but I mean, that'll happen to everyone at some point, and I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I try to keep an eye out for hairs, but, they happen. There was that one Thak film. It was camping. There was just like a hair in the middle of the set for half of the film. It was kind of funny.
I think one of the funniest things is when if you're animating someone talking, and literally for just a couple of frames you get like a dust on their face, and then as you're animating you think, oh, I gotta get rid of that, and then suddenly the dust disappears.
Yeah. I honestly, if it's bad enough, I will restart a shot if there is dust and then it disappears, or vice versa.
Yeah.
If it's terribly noticeable, yeah.
Yeah.
Although what I've done in the past is I might just cut out a little segment of the frames where the dust is gone, and then just paste over the part with the dust, with just that little loop of the segment.
Oh, right, yeah.
Assuming that nothing moves through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's all the films.
Hey,
Which,
nice.
I think that it is a great set of results, actually. I think it's worth mentioning that I was very happy with how it came out.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say, actually, it's unusual, I think, that there wasn't necessarily one that everybody thought, oh yeah, this is the number one winner, necessarily. But I do think
that's how I felt as well. There were a couple of ones where I thought, no, that could be it, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that just goes to show just how great a lot of the films were. All the top 10 films could have been in the top 3 in a weaker year, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I really liked the diversity of the top 10. You had, going from 1 to 10, you've got, a story, just a drama. You've got comedy. You've got kind of a conceptual drama. Then you've got just your classic Thak film, where it's a happy story. Then you've got another subtle drama. Then you've got a less than subtle drama. And then you've got, the stops. Kaleidoscope film, and then you've got conceptual, kind of, then you've got very conceptual, and then you've got a zombie film.
And I also like the theme as well. I think it lent itself well so that the films aren't all very similar.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, actually, that I was saying at the beginning about how Mortality was kind of a more serious film, when actually a lot of these films were kind of more serious, I think. More serious than most top 10 THAC films usually are.
They were all serious except for mine and Silent Frames and Thistoff's. Although
I think-
Thistoff's is arguably serious as well. You know,
Actually,
you kind
I'd
of
say-
go whatever.
I'd say Silent Frames is actually serious as well,
Yeah.
actually.
I would have said so.
Well, at least it's not a comedy, anyway. You know?
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was like a comedy in bad taste when I first saw it, but then I realised...
But yeah, I really think it's just yours and Thistoff's that are more kind of lighter, I guess you could say,
yeah.
in general feel. Maybe Two Awesome Guys as well.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, I guess. But yeah, like
Yeah.
there wasn't like usually you get these kind of insane kind of like wacky comedy films, but we don't really get that this year, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at last year's results, there's a lot more comedy.
Yeah, I mean like there wasn't any films like Whale 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 or Tree Father or something like that, you know.
Yeah. There were a few of those that were attempted, but not all of them were finished. Like, what was the one that
Oh, Pong Owl's one wasn't finished in time.
Delivery? I think it was called Delivery. Yeah, Pong Owls wasn't finished in time. I guess Rio did finish his. That was interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like how Plung Owl still sort of decided to release his, but just made it make no sense.
Well, yeah, it's nice just to be in the playlist and be involved.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I'm
then-
glad you did.
He did release the finished film, and it's just listed as, oh, this is an entry for TAC. So it doesn't say that it actually wasn't finished on time. Just kind of wondering if anybody would be thinking to themselves, why didn't this make the top 10?
I did think that the what he did release in SAC was actually pretty funny, actually.
Speaking of Pong Owl's one, though, as usual, there was some very nice techniques in there.
Yeah,
He had the moving water, which I believe he said was might have been a melted lighting gel. It was all deformed, and he was just spinning it around. I think that's what he said it was.
That's great.
I do really like that opening sort of scene, actually, with the ship and. Yeah, actually, thank you for reminding me because I need to watch his actual film. 'Cause I haven't actually seen
Oh,
it
yeah.
yet. But yeah, like the first bits of animation that he did actually complete on time were very promising. Yeah,
Yes, as usual from him, plenty of techniques that are rather unusual
yeah.
and might be worth stealing.
Did you guys have any films that didn't make it in the top 10 that you liked particularly?
Yeah, actually, one of the ones I think people were kind of surprised it didn't place was The Predator.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
I don't know if I watched that one.
I'm kind of not surprised that it didn't place because I really like it conceptually, but all the ones in the top 10 have more to them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that'll always do better. But yeah, The Predator is definitely one of the funniest ones, in my opinion.
Okay, I haven't seen that one. I guess I'll watch it afterward.
Yeah, I'm actually just going through them again, actually, as a kind of reminder.
Oh, Cured didn't. Even though there were a couple of things in that I wasn't so fond of, but in general it was quite well made.
Cured?
Yeah, the zombie film.
Oh,
Kind of-
yeah, the Zombie
yeah.
Cure Experiment. I liked that one. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I really like it. My biggest complaint about it is the digital camera movement, but apart from that, it's really good.
I actually didn't. I specifically made this comment when I was watching it. I was like, it's very obviously digital, but I don't dislike it. It's not like horrible, your typical terrible digital camera movement. In my opinion, anyway.
Oh, actually, this is one I remember. Another one that didn't make the top 10 I really liked was Camp Catastrophe.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
there is a lot of like light flicker in it, and it's not the for that, but it has some really nice like motion blur.
Oh, brick build.
Yeah, but motion
Oh
blur.
yes.
I know this is a funny.
Oh, actually, no, sorry to cut you off, but there was one that was called The Cliff. That was one of my favorites.
I don't know if I got to that one.
The Cliff.
It's like a very long shot of a battle going on, and it's like, I think it's based on an old Flash game.
That one, The Cliff, THA Cliff. Yeah, I watched that one. I don't think I understood what was going on.
Oh, yeah, that was
Probably the
interesting.
Flash animations would have helped give me context.
Oh yeah, based on Flash animations. Yeah, maybe it's not quite for everyone, but I really enjoyed it.
I wasn't too sure about the film for the first I don't know 20 odd seconds, and then when it actually becomes like this sort of game, it is cool actually. I do like it.
Yeah, I liked how it just kept going and going and going, and ludicrous things just kept happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there is a decent amount of films that didn't make the top 10, which I did actually really enjoy. Overall, it was a very strong year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the year with the largest number of entries ever.
Yeah. One of the ones that I
So it's
liked
definitely strong.
particularly, it was a lower quality one, but it's one of the first ones in the playlist. It's called The Well or Well. It's called Well, yeah, by Joshua Nelson. It's really short, but I liked it. The blowing leaves at the start and the shot of the guy running and peering into the well. It's like really stylistic, but I like it.
Another one I really like was Bertel's entry.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that was
That
really
was
funny.
great.
I always like his films.
Yeah,
And I'm glad to see that he's brick filming again.
the ending of that I thought it was really hilarious.
Yep. Oh, The Discovery by Duffasaur. I enjoyed that one. The voice acting by Star Wars Studio was really good. I also like the mini scale that he had in there. I might be a bit biased there, but I liked it.
Oh, Legend by Mark Nelson movies.
Oh yeah, Mark Nelson had a great set in particular. But you know what? It feels like we could go through practically the entire list, and really, most of them were quite good, I thought.
Yeah, I think so.
Watching the entire playlist, I mean, usually in text it can get a bit rocky, but I don't think that was the case this year.
Yeah, there was something to appreciate about most of these.
It was an incredibly long playlist, but very high quality.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose we're pretty much finished, aren't we?
I think so. I think we should stop now before we've talked about all 84 entries.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we'll just do a ranking of every single film. The top 84 films of Dak. Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. That was great.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks
thank you.
for inviting me.
Yeah, and yeah, congratulations for coming second place. It was a great film.
Yeah, thank you.
And of course, I'll be looking out for your big project, hopefully
Yeah.
coming this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking forward to that. Yeah, I
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
am. Yeah.
I better have it finished this year with the point I'm at.
Yeah, it's that sort of like you get to 95% of the way there, and that's the longest 5% to finish.
Can be, yeah.
We'll see, though. I am looking forward to having that finished and out of my hair now.
Actually, how long is the film going to be?
Roughly 10 minutes.
Very nice.
Give or take, probably take just a little bit.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.